the pasta rocket that might remind you of those methods that the astronauts used to lift off from the Earth. We will be using good old-fashioned pasta. For our oxidizer, we will keep it simple and use everyone's favorite breathable gas, oxygen! Woohoo! First and foremost, we start out with our mason jar that has a lid with a hole in the middle of it. Squeeze that on. We have some hydrogen peroxide, some active yeast, and a lighter. Oh, and I forgot the best part, pasta. We begin by filling the mason jar with hydrogen peroxide to about 3/4 of the way up the jar, leaving room for the bubbling that might happen after we add our yeast in. Next, we add 1/4 teaspoon of yeast, or more if you have a bigger jar. It will begin bubbling and releasing oxygen shortly, so put your lid with a small hole over the top of the jar. The lid should sit loosely on top of the jar and not be screwed in so tight that it might trap too much air inside and explode the jar. Now that our rocket assembly is complete, now comes the best part. It's time to count down and ignite our rocket. Simply light the flame and watch as the oxidizer ignites and burns the pasta fuel. We have liftoff! Whoa, that's pretty cool. Wow, look at the way the flame is. So you see how high the flame is getting? If you're at home and you're doing this, make sure you either have a fire extinguisher or something very quick to be able to get rid of the flame. As you can see, this is the same method engineers use to build the rockets that send satellites and people up into space. Because we are making this with pasta and air, it isn't quite powerful enough to reach orbit. But if you built the same kind of assembly from proper parts and used a more powerful fuel, you would have yourself a working rocket. Houston, we have a problem. Let's try and understand the fuel that feeds any rocket as it blasts off. There are 3 different types of rocket fuel: solid propellant, liquid propellant, and hybrid propellant. Solid propellant means that the fuel that is burning in the rocket and pushing it with its exhaust is made out of a solid material, usually in powdered form, be it something simple as, say, gunpowder. Liquid propellant is sometimes preferred by rocket engineers because it can be denser than solid fuels. So, sometimes more liquid fuel can be fit into a rocket than its solid counterpart. In World War II, this means armies would use anything from gasoline to alcohol as liquid fuel in their rocket-powered bombs. The third kind of fuel is called hybrid propellant. Rather than all of the fuel being made from one thing, hybrids can be divided into 2 parts. First part being some sort of solid fuel that, unlike solid propellant, cannot burn by itself and needs the help of the second part called the oxidizer. As you might know, fire cannot usually burn without oxygen, even if it has a really strong fuel. The same principle applies to the hybrid rockets. The fuel inside can only burn and launch the rocket if it is accompanied by a gas or a liquid oxidizer. Houston, we have a problem. This viewer hasn't subscribed to Expulsion Science.